Thank you for coming to my class today. We're talking about sunscreen love. I'm hoping you're going to ask, what is sunscreen love?
What is sunscreen love?
What is sunscreen? Right. So I used to go to the beach a lot, and I would put SPF 30 or 15 on before I go to the beach in the morning. I'd be playing on the beach all day, playing in the waves, playing volleyball, taking a nap, having lunch. And I'd come back to my beach house in the afternoon. I'd be completely burnt. What happened?
The sunscreen wore off.
I forgot to reapply the sunscreen. Love is the exact same way. You fall in love in your early 20s, you get married, and you think that love is going to last forever. But guess what? Just like you're busy on the beach, you get busy in life. You have a job, you have hobbies, you have children. And you think that love's going to stay. But guess what? If you don't reapply the love, if you don't romance the love in the relationship, that love can burn. That romancing the love is taking that infatuation, lust, desire you have for someone and turning to love. And if we don't work on it, that love will burn. I know guys in their 40s and 50s have gotten divorce letters from their wives' attorneys, and they had no idea the relationship was in trouble. They had no idea. What happened? They forgot to romance the relationship. One idea we're going to talk about, and this is a theme throughout my classes, is that when you criticize someone, you're tearing apart the love. And I grew up in an Ashkenazi house, and my mom was a little bit critical, and you don't realize you're critical. In fact, you can go through your whole life not realizing you're criticizing people, and you are criticizing people. I was coaching this nice young lady one day. She was in her late 30s, and she's a Baal Tshuva, and she was going on a date with this Sephardi guy who was not so religious, but still connected. And they go to this restaurant in Netanya, and they order a soup and sandwich. And she goes to wash her hands and say the bracha before she asks her. She sits down and says chamotzi before she eats her bread. He goes and washes, and he comes back, doesn't say a thing. And she says to him, aren't you going to say a bracha? And he goes, no, I just washed my hands because they were dirty. And she says, you're supposed to say a bracha. He takes the soup and he pours it in her lap. And I said to her, do you realize, because this relationship obviously didn't work, I go, do you know that you're criticizing him? She goes, no, I wasn't. I'm like, from your perspective, you weren't criticizing him, but from his perspective, he's being criticized. She goes, no, I'm not. I was just trying to make him to a better man. And we don't realize we criticize. She had no idea that she was being critical of him. And I said, we criticize all the time without even thinking about it. And every time you criticize your spouse, you are wiping away the sunscreen. You are causing the relationship to burn. And every time you compliment your spouse, you're putting sunscreen on. And I love this concept. I used to go to the beach a lot, so I understand. I don't want to burn. I don't want my relationship to burn. So I sing a little song in my house. Compliment, don't criticize. Compliment, don't criticize. Or she'll find another guy. Compliment, don't criticize. Or she'll poke you in the eye. Compliment, don't criticize. Or he'll say, bye, bye, bye. Compliment, don't criticize. Live under sunny skies. Every time you compliment your spouse, you're putting sunscreen on and you're building the love in the relationship. And every time you criticize him, you're wiping it off. Now, one of the reasons I started writing a class on marriage and dating is because when I was married for about 10, 15 years, I said to my wife, why is it that our marriage is equal to everybody else? We have a pretty good marriage. It wasn't awesome, but it was pretty good. I go, why is our marriage equal to people, that get divorced 5, 6, 7 times in Hollywood, people with dysfunction, people in abusive relationships, all these people getting divorced? Why is our relationship equal? There should be what I call a level 2.0. Just like you upgrade your phone, you upgrade your computer, you should be able to upgrade your marriage. And so I came up with this idea called the 4 phases of love. And one of the reasons why I really wanted to write about this and teach about this is because if you take 100 marriages in the world today, 100 marriages, not in the frum world, not in the religious world, 100 marriages, how many get divorced? How many? How many? 50? 50%?
Yeah, more.
60%? 60, I got 65, I got 65, I got 70. It's a lot, right? It's crazy, it's a high amount. It's crazy. It's absolutely nuts. Of the ones that are not divorced, let's say it's 50%. Of the ones that are not divorced, how many of them do you think are in happy, loving relationships?
50%?
How much?
50.
50? What's your name?
Emma.
20%?
Well, my grandmother has a saying that 10% of married people are happy, 10% are unhappy, and 88% are married.
She,
I wouldn't say 80%
So you're saying, Emma, in the back, basically, if you get married today and you're walking down the aisle, and no one walking down the aisle to the chuppah thinks they're going to be a statistic. Everyone thinks they're going to be a passionate, loving relationship for the rest of their life. But according to you, according to Emma, it's 1 out of 4. That sounds great. Let's all get married. It's ridiculous. It's horrible. And one of the reasons is, if you're going to go to college and you get a degree, you want to learn about something. You want to become an accountant, a nurse, whatever it is. You want to get a driver's license. My daughter in Maryland just got her permit. So I took her out when I was back in America last week. I took her out twice. It's kind of scary. But she was doing great. She did great. I took her on the second day. I took her. No, she's a junior in high school. I took her out on the road, and she did 16. She did fantastic. But you have to study. You got to practice. I think you need to have 50 hours on the road, and you have to take classes and then take a test, just to get a driver's license. You have to get married, or even to date. What do you have to know? What class do you have to take? What course do you have to master or pass in order to get married? Nothing. And everyone thinks, I know what I'm doing. I can have a great relationship. Yet, as statistics show, people have no idea. They have no idea. And I think if you're taking this class, you're in this class today, you are not going to be a statistic. It's just basic wisdom that is, I don't know if it's taught anywhere. I don't know people, everyone takes classes on public speaking, but no one takes classes on public listening, because listening is such a major part of the relationship. So I put love into 4 phases. Okay, here are the 4 phases. Phase number 1 is what I call the crush. This is when you go out with a guy and he's kind of cute and you like him, makes you laugh. Like, you know what? I could see having a second date with him. This could go somewhere. And the word crush has a negative connotation because it sometimes means infatuation. Now, and this is a big problem in the world today. People confuse infatuation with love because they don't know what love is. We're going to get into this in a second. They have no idea what love is, and they're infatuated, and they wonder why they're in a horrible relationship. But you have to have that in order to get to the love you want. Now, that's phase 1. Phase 2 is I call the research phase. This is when you're at a very exciting time in the relationship. This is when you're learning the likes and the dislike about everyone, the person you're going out with. It's a very exciting time. And now when I would set people up, I would say to someone, I have someone for you. And you go, I'm seeing someone. What does it mean when you're seeing someone? It means you're dating. It means you're busy, right? What should you be saying? I am listening to someone, because listening is how relationships are formed. Listening is a lost art form. Like I said before, there's classes on public speaking, none on public listening. I tell guys all the time. Women, now you can tell me if I'm wrong, women want a guy that listens to them, that understands them, that opens up emotionally and is able to be vulnerable. That's what they want. And guys stink. I was in my early 20s. I was not raised in a religious home. I didn't become Baal Tshuva until my mid-40s. And I couldn't get a second date. And my best friend said to me, stop talking and just listen. And guess what? He was right. Because no one taught me that I had to listen to people. It's interesting that twice a day in the Jewish prayers we say, in Shema, we say, Shemo v'tishma'u, God bless you. Shemo v'tishma'u, hear and you shall listen. Because there's 2 kinds of hearing. There's one where it goes in one ear, not the other. And there's one where you listen and internalize it. And it's interesting, if you want to capture someone's heart, you have to listen with your ears. Because the word ear is right in the middle of the word heart.
Well, what if it does not make a difference to you what you're saying? So you can actually listen, but it's going to be extremely hard to...
If you're... I remember dating women. In fact, in my emotional vampire class, emotional vampires are people that suck the energy out of you. And one of the categories, you've heard this class, right? And I have a new category called people who talk too much. I remember dating this woman, and she just couldn't stop talking. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is torture. Like, this was just one date. I couldn't believe how hard it was to talk to her, to be with her, because she just wouldn't stop talking. A seat there, 2 seats here. So
I'm not even talking about just people that don't stop talking. I'm talking about someone who's talking. It's like almost about the weather. What we're saying. Like,
you mean you have no interest in it?
Yeah.
Well, that's not a person you should be dating. You have to have someone you're going to connect to.
Yeah, but what about another regular relationships?
Yeah, I'm talking about day to day. I'm not talking about marriage.
Listening is so important. I have to listen to my wife, and I have to work on it. Listening is an art form. It takes practice. Most guys stink at it. We do. We just stink at listening. I'll give you an example. I can go to a hockey game with one of my best buddies, or I go to a Lakers game, whatever it is, right? I can say 2 words to him the whole time. We grunt a little bit. We have some popcorn and beer. And we had a great time. If you ever walked the NBA playoffs, like center court, Lakers, Bulls, whatever, and 3 rows up in the center court are 2 women, what are they doing the whole time? They're talking. They're not even watching the game, because that's how they connect. I'll give you a little story. It's a joke. You have a couple walking down the street, married couple walking down the street, and a woman walks by, and the wife says to the woman, "Oh, how are you?" And they start talking for a few minutes. And the husband says, "Oh, who is that person?" And the wife says, "Oh, I met her at Marshall's last week in the dressing room." She goes, "Her daughter had an operation. I want to find out. She's buying clothes for her daughter. I want to find out how the operation went." He goes, "Oh, okay." And they walk down the street, and a man walks by, and the husband goes, "Hey." The guy goes, "Hi." And the wife goes, "Who's that?" And the husband says, "Oh, I gave him my kidney last week." You see the difference? We don't have this need to communicate. We like to share ideas, but women connect through emotional connection. That's through listening. We're getting some ideas about this. So that's phase 2 is called the research phase. Phase 3 is called, we're talking about the 4 phases of love. Phase 1 is the crush, phase 2 is the research phase, and phase 3 is what I call the commitment. This is when you decide, from my vernacular, to get married. I know in the world today, not everyone wants to get married, long-term relationship, whatever you want to call it, but from my vernacular, it means to get married. And this is where the problem lies. It's easy to get married. It's not difficult at all. And so I came up with what I call phase 4. Phase 4 I call never leaving. This is the point in a relationship after 5, 10, 15 years when you realize there's someone better in every single characteristic. There's someone who's a better cook, someone who's got more money, someone who's skinnier, someone who's fatter, someone who opens up more emotionally, someone who's funnier, someone who's less funny. Whatever you want, there's someone better in every single characteristic. But you realize the person you married isn't perfect, but they're perfect for you. That's the phase of never leaving. Now, what's the difference between the commitment and never leaving? You're only committed to things until you're not committed anymore. How many times have you been committed to, like, I'm going to work out at Gold's every day, every day starting January 1st. Or I'm going to commit it, I'm going to eat vegan. I'm going to, stop smoking cigarettes. I'm going to stop smoking cigarettes while I'm keeping vegan. Whatever you say you're going to do, and then you quit. Or you stop doing it. Because you're only committed. You're committed to a political party, you're committed to a school, committed to whatever it is you're doing, until you're not committed anymore. There's got to be much more to a marriage. And so that's the 4th phase of love. It's interesting. If you ever watch a romantic comedy, what's the last scene in the movie? They fall in love and they get married. That's usually what happens. How come they never showed 10, 20, or 30 years later? Because it wouldn't be a romantic comedy. It'd be a murder mystery. The day you get married is the day the hard work starts. What do you do when you get engaged? First thing you do, you get engaged. Anyone here married?
Yeah.
You're married? Well, how long have you been married for?
8 months.
Oh, newlywed.
Yeah.
It's a good class for you.
Yeah.
I'll get into some marriage stuff. So what did you do the day you got engaged?
Like, cried from happiness. Couldn't barely breathe.
Okay, did you call your parents?
Yeah.
And what did you do for the next 3-4 months?
Well, we planned a wedding.
Plan a wedding. You plan a wedding. Who's going to go? What the theme's going to be? Where the event's going to be? It's called what? Kala Land?
Like La La Land?
Oh yeah?
La La Land.
I've never heard of that before. Kala Land. But what should you be doing? And the wedding's great, but how long does the average wedding last?
6 hours.
5, 6 hours max. You should be planning the rest of your life together. And people don't do that. They focus on the wedding and nothing else. And they get married and they're like, oh my gosh, what are we doing now? We have no idea what we're doing.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm going to give you some ideas that you should take for marriage that really are going to help clarify. And one thing you have to do is clarify your terms. Define what your terms are. Who here wants to be in love? Okay, all the hands are going up. Who here, someone tell me what love is. Wait a second. You just said you want to be in love, right? Tell me what love is.
Things you do.
Things you do.
Or like
Huh?
the effort, like the physical work you put into a relationship.
Yeah, no, that's part of it.
It's the feeling that you can't live without them.
The feeling you can't live without them, that's not a bad idea. That's not a bad definition. Anyone else?
I was going to say they should throw out.
Okay, just wait a second. So I'm going to break it down to 2 different ideas. One is what I call the feeling of being in love, and then I'll give you the definition. The feeling of being in love is wanting to give without getting anything in return. Like you said, putting the effort. I want to give to this person. I'm not doing it to get something back. That is what I call the feeling of love. Rabbi Tversky, Avram Tversky, Mr. Shalom Havanalia, he said there's an idea called fish love. Anyone heard about fish love?
I know.
Well, you do, because you've been in my class. Anyone here like fish? Salmon? You like salmon?
Tuna.
Tuna, how you like it cooked?
Kind of like raw.
Oh, you like sushi?
Weird, yeah.
Yeah, I love spicy tuna rolls. That's kind of my favorite sushi. Okay, what's your name?
Erica.
Erica. Now, Erica loves tuna. If Erica really loved tuna, she would take a live tuna and she'd put it in a bowl of water by her bedstand and read it fish stories at night and take on fish play dates. She wouldn't kill the tuna and eat it. What Erica has is fish love for tuna. It means she gets pleasure from tuna. It brings her pleasure. And that's called infatuation. She has infatuation. She wouldn't kill the tuna if she loved the tuna. What real love, the feeling of love, is wanting to give without getting anything in return. The definition of love is the emotional pleasure you feel when you focus on the virtues of somebody else and you continue to associate them with those virtues. I'll say it again. The definition of love is the emotional pleasure you feel when you focus on the virtues of somebody else and you continue to associate them with those virtues as you age. Which means there is a reason why you fell in love. We discussed earlier, Emma said 1 in 4. Only 1 in 4 chance of having a happy marriage. Why are the rest of them not happy or divorced? Why did you fall in love?
Because they're associating the bad stuff with the person instead of...
The good stuff.
No, this is why they didn't go.
What?
I was saying the opposite. Why
Oh, there's a reason why Erica fell in love. Let me tell Erica something right now. Your relationship is going to go through struggles. It's going to go through turbulence. It's going to go through friction. I'm telling you this right now. It's a fact of life. And you better remember why you fell in love in the first place. Because you're going to start focusing on all those negative things that your husband has. What's his name? Izzy. Let me give you an idea, a parable. There's a TV show called Chopped. It's on the Food Network. Anyone ever watched it? You watched it? It's 4 contestants. They're chefs. And they have 15 minutes to make an appetizer. And then one of them gets voted off the show, and then they make a main course, and then one gets voted off the show, and then finally at the end, one's chopped champion, and they win $5,000 or $10,000. That's not the point of my talk. Why this whole thing really related to me, when they start the contest to make this appetizer, they get this basket full of very unusual ingredients that most chefs never cook with. Things like snake meat, dried crickets, squid ink, jicama powder, snail urine. I mean, who cooks with snail urine, right? Like, no one does that, right? It's like, and they have to use them in a dish. Marriage is the exact same way. You fall in love. I'm going to be in love forever. And then you get married, and you find out that your husband has a basket full of stuff that you had no idea. And you have a basket full of stuff that you don't even understand what you have. Especially the younger you are. When you're older, you kind of know your issues. But when you're young, you have no idea what they are. And it could be inability to trust. It could be inability to open up emotionally. It could be anger issues. It could be a slob. Whatever it is, maybe it doesn't listen very well. Everyone's got issues. Yes, question.
Do you think that it's better to get married when you're very aware of your issues, or when you when you don't know and you kind of discover?
I think it's great just to not have any issues. That's what I think. I think you should work on yourself, and you can work on yourself. I was so impatient when I got married. So I'm very, very impatient. I'm like, when I used to play Monopoly with my brother, like I couldn't wait from the move. Like when he rolled the dice, I'd move his pieces and pay I couldn't say, I'm on spielkus all the time. And I had to work on my patience. Is it perfect? No, but you can ask my wife. Believe me, you can ask my wife. It's much better. I've worked on myself. I've gotten better. I listen much better. In fact, I was given the compliment recently that when I coach people, usually after a class or whatever, that you really listen to people. And it takes effort to listen to people. It really takes, and I tell these guys, start practicing when you're dating. Don't wait till you're married and things are involved. I want to say one thing. The average Fortune 500 company, large company in America, spends $150 million a month on consultants. It's $1.8 billion a year. Why? Because consultants help the bottom line. They make more money when they get someone coming in telling them what to do, how to make their business better. When do people who are married get consultants? When things are falling apart. I think everyone, my representative told me that when my kids get married, soon by me, that the person they marry better have a rabbi or representative to follow. If they don't, run away. Am I right? gotta have somebody, no, you don't think, you gotta have someone guiding you.
I don't know.
You gotta have someone guiding you. You think you're gonna go on this, and you can. If you came from a great marriage, if you came from a home with full of love and you have something good to emulate, you have a much better shot. But if you came from a home with dysfunction or divorce, you don't have something to emulate, and it doesn't mean you can't have a passionate marriage, it just means you have more work to do. It's the only difference, just more work to do. You should be reading my books, listen to having a coach, represent someone who's gonna help guide you through these relationships. So the definition of love is focusing on the pleasure when you met someone, what made you fall in love with them? And I have to deal with this now. I'm married now, Baruch Hashem, 23 years. And the love I have for my wife now does not compare to the love I had for her on my wedding day. And I thought I was in love wedding day. I had no idea. And my relationship goes through turbulence, there's times where it's rough. And what I do? I focus on why I fell in love. This is why I fell in love with my wife, Ilana, and I'm gonna stay focused on those things. Are there things that bother me? For sure. You're gonna get married, and you're gonna get married, find a guy, and he's gonna annoy you about certain things. It's a fact. So you better stay focused on why you fell in love in the first place. Now, we're gonna talk about 3 questions you must ask before you get married. Because I get all the time young ladies coming up to me. I spoke at Neve like about a month ago, and I had a woman lined up for like 5 minutes a shot asking questions. And they want to know, should I marry this guy? Not all of them, but that's one of the questions. Should I marry this guy? And so you should have 3 questions that you have in your repertoire to ask before you marry someone. Number 1, am I physically attracted to them? Am I physically attracted to them? Which does not make them physically attractive to anybody else. The more you know someone you like, the better looking they get. Whereas the more you know someone you don't like, the more you know someone you don't like at all, the uglier they get. Brad Pitt, good-looking guy in Hollywood. There are women who can't stand him. You can't stand him. I always say, this is one of my lines, for every beautiful woman walking down the street, for every hunky guy walking down the street, there is someone that is sick of them. It is a fact. It is. Looks only go so far. You might have been to a wedding of yours when you were your girlfriends, and you go see the groom for the first time. And you look at, and she's a good-looking girl, bless you, and she's a nice-looking girl. And you look at the guy like, oh my gosh, he looks like Freddy Krueger. And the reason why is you don't know him like she knows him. And this is why I have a rule called the 3-date rule. Bless you. The 3-date rule states you should date someone at least 3 times. Obviously, if they laugh like a hyena, or they can't stop talking about their mother, or they pick their nose, right, or live in the treehouse, don't go out with them again. But you've got to give someone 3 chances. Why? You don't know someone after 1 date. When I used to date, again, I wasn't observant. I was very nervous, especially the more beautiful the woman was, the more nervous I was. And I would make sure to go to a restaurant that wasn't pasta or pizza. And I would make sure they had a salad. I get a salad, and I say to the waiter, leave off the dressing, because it can get on your collar, and forget the avocados, get stuck in your teeth, and forget the carrot. I said, just bring me plain lettuce. And if I'm like that on the first date, are you going to get to know me in the first date? Not a chance in the world. I'm so nervous. I'm sure the girls are nervous too. So how can you make a decision on 1 date? I'm not saying, this is a generalization. I'm not telling you when you're dating, it's like, okay, this guy's 500 pounds and he smells, and they're like, don't go with him again. But unless there's any red flags, give him a chance. Because we live in a world now where we have so many options. We have so many choices because of the internet, and people are not willing to give someone a chance. More in the secular world than the religious world, but the woman's 10 pounds overweight, swipe. She's got a pimple on her nose, forget about it. Right? She's not that funny. People don't give anyone a chance. And when you get to know someone, thank God, my wife went out with me. She almost didn't. She was raised in a very, I would say, traditional home. I like to say she was frum conservative. She was raised in a conservative home. She went to shul. She had Shabbat dinners. She went to shul on Saturdays. But she wasn't like, we are now. And when she found out that I was not religious at all, like nothing, she almost didn't go out with me. But I guess she saw something in me, and that's obviously our life has changed. Now we're living in Israel with 5 children. Whatever, whole different story. And I'm teaching yeshiva. I don't know how that happened. But
You became religious after you got married?
yeah. I was 45 years old.
At your wedding, you were not religious?
Was not religious.
And she was?
Nope. She was not religious either. She was traditional.
More affiliated than you were?
She was traditional. Like she had Shabbat dinners.
Would you recommend that for a couple?
To what?
That it sounds like she was more connected than you were.
Yes, it's okay if the woman is more connected than the man. It's not good the other way around. Yeah, usually the woman's the house is gonna go by the way of the woman. The woman doesn't decide where the kids go to school, where you're gonna live. Like, can you imagine taking a vacation, your wife doesn't go there? It's not gonna happen. The wife usually chooses those things in the house. Get that? Okay. So question number one you have to ask before you get married, am I physically attracted to them? Which does not make me physically attracted to anybody else except you. I always joke that, I remember back in high school, there was just like this short, fat kid who was really funny, and he always had this beautiful girlfriend. Why? Because it was more than just physical. Question number two, do we share common meaningful goals and values? Or have a common meaningful purpose in life? Because many people get married because they want to have children. And children are great to have. May you all be blessed with many children. Amen. But if many people get married, they've been married 20, 25 years, and their kids have left the house, and they're staring at each other in the kitchen like, why do we get married? Oh, for children. Yeah, we don't. This the end of that marriage, right? Many people get married because they meet at softball games, they meet at running clubs, they meet at yoga, Pilates classes. Like, oh, you like yoga? I like yoga. Oh, let's go out. And they're cute and whatever. And again, they evolve to a physical relationship. They confuse infatuation with love and wondering why they're in a horrible relationship. One of the things I say, it's a chapter in my book. It's actually, this is the book that's out now. It's called Infinite Marriage, The 4 Phases to a Loving Relationship. I'm actually rewriting this book. This is more for the Froom audience. I'm rewriting it as Sunscreen Love. It should be out in a few months. It's going to be a little more edgier, more in my voice. And so, oh, by the way, you can get this one, Never Feel Unloved Again. This is my self-esteem book. I can give you a copy, or you can listen to it on Living in Clarity podcast. I read it, or you can download it for free at coachratner.com. Just want to say those things. What was I talking about?
How much does it cost?
What?
The physical.
I'll give it to you. Do you have one? Oh, you don't have one yet? Here.
Thanks.
There you go. I printed 1,000 copies here in Jerusalem. I'm going to give them all away, yeah. And when I get Sunscreen Love, I'm going to print 2,000 copies. Yeah. Because no one really buys books. Well, not my books, at least. It's okay. That's why I wrote a book on self-esteem. I had to improve my self-esteem. Oh, so we're talking about the second question you must ask. Do we share common values and goals? Many people meet, I said, one is having children. One is meeting at like a workout class or a softball game. Another is people meet because, especially, someone's got money, and like, oh, I'll marry him, he's got money, it makes him make me happy, right? And guess what? You have many, many guys who are divorced, driving their Bentleys to their country clubs in South Florida, and it doesn't make them happy, right? I'd rather you have money than not have money, but like, if you think about a challenge in a marriage, what is more of a challenge, poverty or wealth? What's more of a challenge, poverty or wealth? You think poverty. You would. Here's the thing about poverty, and I don't wish it on anybody. It doesn't sneak up on you. You know you're poor. You get married to a guy who has no money. You know you're poor. You wake up, you have a hard time paying, but it's not a secret. It's not a surprise. Wealth, on the other hand, sneaks up on you. I've seen this in my business where guys start in their 20s, have no money, and suddenly they make a lot of money, and their 30s and 40s have gotten married, and guess what? Money gets in the way of the relationship. Beach houses, the cars, vacation, suddenly that becomes the focus instead of the relationship itself. And that cannot be the reason you get married. Common meaningful values and goals must be something more than physical, must be spiritual. From my vernacular, from my point of view, having God in your life is a game changer. This is why people who are religious, in any religion, not just Jewish, Christian, or any religion, have a divorce rate that's significantly less than the non-religious world. Because they say people that pray together stay together. And there's some truth to that. So that's the second question. And by the way, I was in LA a few months ago. And Aisha Torah had this conference in Miami they wanted me to go to. I wasn't going to go. They said, we have a couple flying from LA to Miami in their private jet. Can you go with them? I'm like, sure, twist my arm. I'll take a private jet to Miami. So this couple in their 60s, late 60s, no children, fabulous marriage. Why? They share a common meaningful purpose and goal. And that meaningful purpose is they help organizations out in the world. They go donate all their money for conservative causes. They help Chabad in LA. They help here at Aish Torah. And they actually are engaged. They go to these events and they help these candidates, these conservative candidates in the political sphere. That's a common. It's not God, but it's still something meaningful. And you got to have something meaningful in your life that you share. The third question is different from man and the woman. The third question that a man must ask before he gets married: am I willing to make her happy the rest of her life? If I'm willing to make her happy the rest of my life, if fill in the blank. If he can't say that, he shouldn't marry her. The question for a woman is different than a man. The question that a woman needs to ask before she gets married, you ready for this one? This is a big one. Do I respect him? Do I respect him? And if I ask a young lady, I'll give you a story. I was coaching this young lady one time. She was here, she was at the Aish seminary, and she was dating this guy for like 2 years, and she loved him. She was like in love with him. And she said, Coach, I have a little issue. I have a problem with him. She goes, I go, what is it? He goes, he's a little slow. And she was like wicked smart, like fast, like really smart. And I said, where is he? He goes, he's at the Aish Yeshiva. I'm like, let me talk to him. I want that with him. Guy's a sweetheart, like the sweetest guy you ever met. You'll ever meet. So sweet. But guess what? He was a little slow. And I said to her, he's great. I mean, he's an amazing guy. I mean, but he's a little slow, but you should try to make this work. 6 months later, she calls me crying. I go, what's up? She said, I'm struggling in a relationship. I asked one question. Do you respect him? She says, no. I said, you cannot marry him. I said, he's going to make a great husband once for somebody, just not you. And she says to me, can I date him for 2 more years till I finish college? I'm like, no, you can't do that. You must respect the guy. Men, we're very simple. And I don't mean to be crude, but I'm being honest with you. I'm not here to be liked. I'm here to tell you the truth. We need 3 things in our life. Because I'm a guy, so I can say this. We need food, we need sex, and we need respect. Everything else is a bonus. You need to be loved. And we should respect our wife, for sure. But love for us is not as important. It is not as important. I'm going to tell you something that I think can change the specter of your relationship. You ready for this one? When a man walks home, comes into the house from learning or work, the wife should be on the phone, and she should say, hey, Sarah, I have to go. My husband just walked in. Click. Hi, honey. Game changer. That is a game changer because the man's going to recognize his wife is stopping what she's doing to recognize that a man is walking to the house. It's more important than you running up and hugging him, giving him a kiss. That lasts for like 3 months after you get married, after that's done. The most important thing you can do, and by the way, my wife says to me all the time, and my wife does not talk on the phone. She's faking it, and I know she's faking it. I don't care. Why? Because the most important thing to me is to be recognized when I walk into the house. Respect is what we need. Now, we don't have much longer left. I'm going to give you some ideas here. Let me go back to sunscreen love. We talked about compliment, don't criticize. We talked about when you compliment the spouse, you're putting sunscreen on. And when you criticize the spouse, you're wiping the sunscreen off. I want to give you some ideas called the 4 A's. This is attention, affection, appreciation, and awareness. Attention, affection, appreciation, and awareness. You get 4 A's. You can think of it all very easy. It's all going to be in my new book. I think, it's in this book also. Attention, so important. A man, so I used to come home from work when I lived in Maryland. And I had all these things going on in my head. And I really wanted to just grab a beer and sit on the couch and watch ESPN highlights. That's what I wanted to do. My father would come home from work. He was a lawyer. He'd go putter in the garden for a while, for like half an hour. He'd pick beans. He'd pick weeds. He'd water the plants. He'd go take a nap half an hour, and then he'd talk to my mom. Because he had to unwind. But we have to be able to understand that that's not how women connect to us. Women, you can tell me if I'm wrong, please. I'm not a woman, you are. You want to connect to us on an emotional level. The 4 parts of a relationship are what I call physical, intellectual, emotional, and spiritual. Physical, must in a relationship. Intellectual, emotional, and spiritual. It stands for PIES. It's an acronym. But for a woman, the emotional part is the most important. So when a guy comes home from work or learning, he needs to put down his phone and connect to his wife because she needs to talk to him. We don't have that need as much. I'm telling you, we don't have that need. And a man has to come home and ask you 3 questions. You single girls, before you get married, you teach this to your husband. And I'm going to say something else. You might think a little weird. You should discuss, what is your definition? Like, let's say you've gone like, 2 or 3 times. Like, it could go somewhere. You should ask him, what's your definition of love? You don't have to agree with my definition. We should at least have a common theme what love means to you. Man has to come home and ask his wife 3 questions. Number 1, what did you do today? Number 2, what's in your mind? Or what are you thinking about? And number 3, how do you feel? And if you ask her how does she feel, she says, fine. She's not fine. He better keep probing until he gets to the bottom of it. All 3 of those questions have to do with 3 parts. What did you do today? Your hands are physical. What are you thinking about? That's your intellectual. And how do you feel are her emotions? As a guy, he's got to sit there and listen to her for at least 15 seconds. I'm kidding, but I'm not kidding. Because it's not so easy for us. I'm going to tell you right now, it's not, and this is a key part of relationships. He comes home, he needs to connect to his wife. I was coaching this woman, I was coaching in LA, I was teaching a class in Chicago. And a woman comes up to me after class, and she says, and she's been married, she has 3 kids, she's married. She said, I have an issue, because I'll be talking to my husband, and he'll walk out on me. And I said, do you know I've done the same thing? She goes, really? I came home, I was talking to my wife in her office, and next thing I realized, I got donuts in the kitchen. And I just walked out on her. And she goes, where are you going? I'm like, I'm so sorry, I just thought about donuts. Because what happens is, and I told her this, we only have so much bandwidth. I said before, we can go to a hockey game, say 2 words to each other, we had a good time. Women need to connect through speaking. That's how they connect. That's why you notice women talk on the phone a lot more than men. I don't know if you notice this. I remember growing up, we had the phone on the wall, connected to the wall by a cord, and my mom was on the phone for hours. Hours and hours and hours, talking to her best friend Edna. Because that's how they connect. We don't have that need as much. So a guy has to come home and talk to his wife. You need to realize that we only have so much bandwidth. And that sometimes women can talk a lot. We can't handle so much of it. I have a sister who's handicapped, and she's in Maryland. And my other sister in Florida, we both take care of her from afar. And we have to work together. And sometimes my sister will send me this long email with all these things I have to do. And my wife told my sister that you have to write to me or talk to me in bullet points. Because it's too much. I can only handle so much. And you as a wife or a future wife have to understand the guy you're going to marry can only handle so much talking. Just like we have to do a better job of listening, you have to do a better job of understanding that we can only handle so much. Right? Am I right? Okay. Those are the 3 questions you must ask before you get married. Again, respect being the most important thing. We talked about the 4 A's: attention, affection, appreciation, and awareness. Maybe we'll come back to that in a second. But I'm going to get a very important idea. I'll probably end with this idea. What's important to you what's important to them needs to be important to you. What's important to your spouse must be important to you. I'm going to give you some scenarios. Now, when I got married, my wife used to like to go see the modern dance things at the Kennedy Center. I used to go, I didn't like it, but she went. She wanted to go, and I'd go with her. I'm married. It's nice for me to do, right? Go with my wife to a show that I don't have no interest in. And she'd go with me to see the symphony. That's easy. What gets more interesting is in everyday things. For example, I do a lot of the cooking in my house, and when I cook dinner, I'll put the food on the table. I had 5 little kids, now thank God they're bigger. And I bring 7 small forks to the table, and then I put all the dishes in the sink, and my wife will clean up afterwards. My wife would first kind of ask me, can you please bring me a large fork? Now, in a typical marriage, this is not a big deal. It really isn't. But I'm not giving you this class for a typical marriage. The reason why I'm teaching here, I don't get paid for this. The reason why I'm teaching here, I want you to be in a passionate, loving relationship with one person the rest of your life. If you're not, I failed, and I have no intention of failing. This is not just to have a regular marriage. I want you to have an awesome marriage. And so my wife asked me for the large fork. I'm like, you know what? Okay. I take a little small fork, I put it back, I get a large fork. And this went on for some time. And then she would kindly ask me, can you please stop putting the sharp knives in the sink? Because after dinner, she'd clean the dishes. See, I didn't want to do that. Why? Because I'm a neat freak. I like a clean kitchen. I want my counters clean. And if there's a dirty knife on the sink, it's not clean. I don't want to do it. From my perspective, I want a clean kitchen. And guess what happened? After a few months, I'm like, Daniel, because that's my name, why am I being so difficult? Why can't I just bring my wife the large fork? Why can't I just leave the sharp knives on the side of the sink? Because we have different perspectives in the relationship. I came with my perspective, and she has her perspective, and we think we're right. See, I don't care which fork I eat with. My perspective, I don't care. Large fork, small fork, toothpick, tongs, tweezers, my fingers, I don't care what I eat with. From my perspective, so when I bring seven small forks to the table, I'm thinking to myself, who cares? My little kids, they want the small fork. I don't care which one I eat with. So therefore, my wife should not care. But I'm not in this for myself. Marriage is not about me. Marriage is about we. And I have to be able to see things from her perspective. And guess what? I started to bring my wife the large fork. And I started to leave the sharp knives on the side of the sink. Was it hard for me to do? Nah, that was easy. You know what's hard? For me to get over my ego. That I thought I was right. Because in a relationship, your ego is not your amigo. It kills relationships, destroys them. I have a chapter in my book called Sometimes You Have to Be Wrong to Be Right. You can fight with your spouse, and you know you're right. And you fight with him, finally give in. Did you win? You won the battle, you probably lost the war. But here's what's more important about this idea. What's important to you is important to me. Every time my wife walks into the kitchen and sees a large fork, every time she goes into the kitchen and sees a sharp knife on the side of the sink, she knows I'm thinking about it. But what's more important, she knows I'm thinking about it for something that doesn't even matter to me. You want to build that emotional connection in that relationship. You want to have passion in that relationship, which, by the way, when that emotional, it's interesting that in the Gemara, it says the punishment, in the Torah, it says the punishment from a woman having an affair is much worse than a man having an affair. And the reason why, this is a generalization, I'm telling you generalization, huh?
It's very interesting. I have a whole theory. I think actually, I'm about to get up. Okay.
Hold on a second, one more second. The reason why is because when a woman is searching or trying to find somebody else to cheat on, it's because she's looking for an emotional connection. And when she finds a guy and has an emotional connection, that relationship is done with. When a man cheats, generally, it's because an opportunity. And there's no connection for a guy. He's done with her, see you later, get out of the room. And that's why the punishment is worse for a woman than a man. You might say that one time the women are, have had a fight for equality and things like this, but there's a reason why. There's a reason to everything. And so every time my wife walks in the kitchen and she sees that large fork and the knives on the side of the sink, she knows I'm thinking about it for something that doesn't even matter to me. And that helps the emotional connection with my wife. What's important to you needs to be important to me. Why is the fourth phase called never leaving? Well, I was 34 at the time, had not been married. I dated a lot. That's why I know. I didn't get into a lot of dating ideas here. I only had so much time, is that I went on my second date with her, and I said to her, I'm never leaving. I don't know what I meant. Bless you. I had no idea. I was not that mature. And of course, not being a non-religious person, I wasn't going to say, oh, let's get married. Like I know some people who are religious get married on the second date or get engaged. I wasn't going to do that. And she says to me today, you still haven't left. My blessing to you is that you may find the love of your life. May you live with this person with a passionate, loving relationship for the rest of your life. And if you have the right wisdom, this is something that is very possible. Thank you very much.